Hi, my name is Lauren.
And I'm Callie.
And welcome back to another episode of the Book Common Room podcast. Hello, welcome back everybody to the Book Common Room podcast. I feel like I say this every time, but I'm stoked to talk about our book introduction. Stoked.
I drank a lot of caffeine right before this. I'm buzzing.
She's buzzing. Which will be great for us. I'm excited. Great entertainment.
I didn't mean to chug it. I actually meant to, I got it so I could drink it throughout, and then I got here and it was gone.
And you're like, well, oh well. It's in me now. But yes, we are going to be introducing Lore Olympus.
Yes. Lore Olympus by
Rachel Smythe.
Rachel Smythe.
Yes, ma'am.
Smith spelled with a Y.
Yeah, so she's cool. She's cool like that. Yeah, so Lore Olympus, y'all. It's a romance webcomic created by the New Zealand. What?
We have to talk about the books that we're reading right now.
Oh, okay.
That's a new thing we're doing.
Okay, sorry.
We gotta break the ice.
I just thought that was a one-time thing.
No, we gotta do it every time.
Okay.
Okay, Lauren, what are you reading right now? What are you reading?
I'm still reading the same book, girl. I'm still reading Mirror Visitor and Onyx Storm, and I hate the fact that I'm in the middle of both of them right now. And I'm just I don't know which one I should focus on.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any updated thoughts about either of them from last month?
Updated thoughts? I'm really nervous that Onyx Storm is going to have a crazy cliffhanger. One.
Mm-hmm.
And Mirror Visitor, it's the end of the series, and I feel like there's so much has to happen, and I'm halfway through the book.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what is going to happen? How are they going to resolve this, world issue? And for people that aren't familiar with the Mirror Visitor, it's this, it's originally written in French and has been adapted into English.
Crystal DeBose? I don't know how to say her name.
I think her name was Christina.
Oh, just kidding.
But I don't know. I should have grabbed my book, but it's interesting because the enemy in the book is technically God.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this huge mass power that's they're up against, and they're trying to defeat God from the inside of his special
If
servants.
you guys have ever seen Full Metal Alchemist, the anime,
yes,
God in that TV show is how I pictured God in that book.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. But it definitely
that idea. He's God, but he's also truth. And he's all.
Yeah. And so he's interesting. Well, it's a he, and also it's weird because God can change.
Yeah.
It's shapeshift. So,
yeah. And I think the God in the Fullmetal Alchemist kind of does the same thing.
Yeah. So originally this God was a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting, you guys. Anyways, so I have no idea how they're going to tie loose ends as this last book is where I'm at there. And then Onyx Storm, I'm preparing for the wildest cliffhanger, because right now, and these are spoilers, right now they're trying to find the 7th dragon breed to hopefully fight Venom, but also potentially heal Venom. Who knows? Because Xaden is
because you gotta save Zen and
Xaden boy. So we shall see. So that's where we're at right now.
Love it.
Okay.
I finished the 3rd Poppy War series, finally. It took me so long. That book is so heavy that it just took me forever to get through it.
So the 3rd book of the series? Okay.
Yeah, I feel like the 3rd book I just kind of sludged through it every single time. I read it before. Because there's just so much, and it's so heavy, and it's so, ugh, that it took me forever. But it was good. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. But right now I'm on the opposite end. I'm reading the 3rd Emily Wilde's Compendium? I don't actually know if I'm saying that right. Of Lost Tales.
Compendium? I assume that's how you say it.
Anyways,
I don't know how else you would say it.
Basically, the premise of this book, it kind of gives me Fablehaven-y type. It's Fablehaven, Fae, and fairies with Studio Ghibli vibes.
Yes.
The main character, Emily, she's an academic. And that is the forefront. So it's like a journal. It's her journal in every book, and a different academic adventure she goes on. And there's this guy named Wendell who has to be with her, and he gives me Howl vibes. Like the melodramatic,
I'll never
pretty.
No, wait. No, he says, he's like, what's the point of living if I can't be beautiful?
It's that embodied. And I'm here for it.
I love it.
So it's like the polar opposite. And it's not like Akatar type fae.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. I feel like both our books, well, I don't know if, is it called the Mirror Visitor series?
Yeah.
That series has very Studio Ghibli-esque characters.
I gravitate towards those type of stories.
Yes, because I think the reason I like it is because they're like obscure, like the way they describe their faces or like their like mannerisms are very weird.
Yeah.
And I love it though, because it's like, I don't know, you can just like picture it so well, but I always imagine like Studio Ghibli art, kind of like Spirited Away, more vibe, but anyways.
I love it. Well, Lore Olympus is also kind of like obscure with the colors and the art. It's not traditional.
No, I love Lore Olympus.
Did you like that segue? That's pretty
good.
Yeah,
that was so good. So smooth. There we go. Way better than me just jumping into things. I'm just ready to talk about this, y'all. Yeah, this book series, I would give it 5 stars because it has like changed my brain chemistry somehow.
Oh, we need to read the trigger warnings first.
Yes.
At the beginning of it.
Oh, yes. Okay. Here we go.
Do you want me to just read it?
Yes.
Okay, before we get into it, I'm just gonna, the book starts with a content warning. So I figured since we're talking about it, might as well just read the content warning.
Yeah.
Let me get my reading voice on. Lore Olympus regularly deals with themes of physical and mental abuse, sexual trauma, and toxic relationships. Some of the interactions in this volume may be distressing for some readers. Please exercise discretion and seek out the support of others if you require it. Which I feel like was pretty good that she put that in there.
Oh, yeah. And I do think people that read this series, this is my personal opinion, I think you should be 18 years or older.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Because it's heavy content and, like, obviously, like, complex stories that it's grappling with. And so that, for that reason, I think it should be 18 years and older. I don't know what they recommend, but that's just me knowing this series. And, but beyond that, like, don't let it scare you because she does a fantastic job weaving it all into a very beautiful story that, honestly, I keep coming back to.
Yeah. I would say more like 16 or 17 and up.
Okay.
I would have read this when I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Is a senior in high school?
Yeah. I feel like if you're a senior, you could do this. I know for me, I think I wouldn't have really been able to handle it till I was in college, I think. But
I've been reading deep stuff since I started high school.
No, that's good. I think I would have been a little intense for me as a senior. But I did read, like, Sarah J. Maas stuff, and that grapples with some crazy stuff, too.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
But, like, if you see a 12-year-old, maybe
approaching this book because they're like, oh, pretty
read
pictures.
It first.
Yeah. There you go. But anyways, so we'll just get into like the premise of this book and who is Miss Rachel Smythe and kind of the inspiration of this book series and like, I don't know, the realm of graphic novels and comic books and because that's new for this podcast. The genre. So yeah, Lore Olympus is a romance webcomic created by New Zealand author and or New Zealand artist Rachel Smythe. It deviates from Greek mythology most significantly by portraying the gods with modern sensibilities and relationships, particularly by humanizing Hades and Persephone's dynamic, which I love. And their relationship is depicted as a more consensual and loving one versus traditional Greek mythology. The webcomic also explores themes of power dynamics, consent, and personal growth within the Olympian society, often challenging the patriarchal structures present in ancient myths. And so the whole premise of the story is that Persephone is a young goddess, and she leaves her overprotective mother Demeter to attend college on Olympus. So
in the first book, you never see her at college. Does she ever actually go to college?
I don't remember. I just started rereading the second one.
Is she actually in school?
She is in school because she goes to classes and they do like depict her in classes and like how her homework is doing because like the whole thing is like she has a scholarship to be there. The Eternal Maidenhood. With whatever Hestia and Artemis and Athena, who are all part of this.
Yeah.
And so she's on a scholarship. She goes. She doesn't need to work, but she ends up getting a job later while she's in school. And so they kind of show her in school, but college isn't like a huge focus. But it does show that Persephone is like a super hard worker. She's kind of an overachiever, and she's like a nerd, like with school and stuff.
So for this, we're going to be referencing the whole series.
Yeah.
Because it's all out right now. The physical copies, I think they're up to volume 9.
Are they really?
I think. Hold on, don't quote me on that. Or like volume 9 is coming out. Yeah. But I know it's like
at
pretty
least 6
far.
and 7 are probably out. And so I only have up to volume 5 because your girl has to stagger because they're not like 10 books.
No, but it was originally published on Webtoons, which we'll talk about the origins of Webtoons a little bit. It's technically all free on there. You can only read a couple episodes a day. You can watch ads though. Yeah. So if you watch ads, you can keep reading it. So you can either buy the physical copies or you can download the free app, Webtoons. Yeah. And it's all on there.
And they're like kind of different experiences too, because on Webtoons, you have it on your phone, which is super nice, but she'll have like an interactive experience that'll play music while you're going through the episode. So it'll be like specific music for this scene that she imagined. And then when you have the graphic novels, I invest in them because one, they're beautiful, and you get to see like her evolution of artwork.
Her artwork is definitely better at the start in these ones versus on Webtoons.
Yeah, and then she also does like exclusive chapters that didn't make it into the Webtoon into these. And so you get like either sketches of things that she was doing or also like entire chapters that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And so that's why I'm personally investing in them slowly. So they're worth it to me. But yeah. Anyways, so Rachel is credited as being a folklorist on Wikipedia, which is pretty cool. She's also the award winner of the Eisner Award for Lore Olympus, published via Webtoons.
That's like a comic book award. Yeah. It's like the Pulitzer Prize for comics.
Comics, yeah. So William Irwin Eisner was an American cartoonist, and it was named after him. And so he was like one of the first like people doing this kind of artwork for people to consume via stories, reading, whatever. And his thing that got super popular was called The Spirit, which I have never heard about. But for people that are huge comic book readers out there, they're probably aware that this was kind of like probably the birthplace of this in the United States.
Probably.
Very cool. Anyways, yeah, so Rachel Smythe, she's very well decorated, I would say, as an author and artist for this series. It says that from 2021 to 2023, and this is all information you can pull either from like Wikipedia or like biographies about her, but they say that Lore Olympus won 3 consecutive Harvey Awards for Digital Book of the Year and also earned back-to-back Ringo Awards for Best Webcomic in 2022 and 2023. Overall, Lore Olympus has been a hit online and in print, with multiple volumes of the published edition from Penguin Random House reaching #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. So a lot of people really love this series.
Oh yeah, this series is huge.
It's so cool too because it's like she's done like one other work she's done was support like the DC comics for like a Wonder Woman Black and Gold edition, and that was kind of like a one-off thing because all of her work has been surrounded around this original series, Lore Olympus, which is really cool. It only recently finished. I finished reading it like Christmas time last year.
Well, that's kind of what happens with Webtoons. If you know or if you go on to it, any series, there's going to be hundreds of, they call them episodes. It's usually between like, 3 and 20 frames, depending on what you're reading. Yeah. And they'll just go on and on. There's one that I'm reading right now, and each episode, I think, is 10 frames.
Oh, interesting.
And the author takes forever to publish, so... Ooh. You go months.
Little by little.
In between.
Little by little. Yeah, I think what she did... Well, at least when I was on Webtoons and she was publishing, it was... She would have 3 No, that's a lie. She would have one out every week, every Friday. And man, I waited for those Fridays. Sometimes I would like stack them up so I could read more.
Well, because it takes like 2 seconds to read each episode. And
I would
so you
go
get to the
slow.
end and it's like, oh.
I know, I would go slow because I'm like, I want this to last longer. Hers felt kind of longer compared to a few other webtoons. But
we could put up what it would look like
if we're
on your
scrolling.
phone.
Yeah.
Just like over here, people who have never seen it before.
Yeah.
Because it's a different format. I would say it's like if you're reading the digital version of a manga.
Yes.
Like if you download manga, it's exactly how it looks.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not quite a comic book, and it's not quite a manga. I would say it's somewhere in the middle.
In between, yeah. But yeah, we'll put it up on the screen. You can see, and it's super convenient. But I do love the books so much. But we're gonna get into the inspiration of this story. So do we feel good about talking about Rachel Smythe?
Love it.
Okay, she's very cool, and I think she originally studied like graphic design. But we'll get into like her getting into the publishing domain for her stories later. But we'll get into like the inspiration for Lore Olympus right now, and kind of more for you like to introduce this book a little bit more. But in an article I read by this guy, he's a pop culture writer and he specializes in comic book media. He does a lot of publishings with like DC Comics. His name is Joshua Lapin-Bertone, and he wrote that Lore Olympus is an extraordinary popular romance webcomic that focuses on the relationship between the goddess Persephone and Hades, ruler of the underworld. And he initially talks about like what Smith has said in a recent interview, revealing the inspiration for her award-winning webcomic. So she had said, Greek mythology was an early love. I believe I was in middle school when Disney's Hercules came out, and I went to the theater and I was like, wow, I was forever changed. Like most academics at the age of 12, I knew I must research this. I particularly liked Hades. He was fun. I found out he had a wife, and she was not in the movie. Well, she was in the background of a party scene, and she had a very big cocktail. It is not to scale. Who gave her that? I was in my goth stage, and I was like, I must know about this woman living in the underworld. I'm very excited about it. So she went into the whole history, and she heavily researched the story of Hades and Persephone. And the article writer goes on to say, like, if you have seen Hercules and have read Lore Olympus, then you know that they couldn't be more different in tone. So he kind of just talks about how it's amazing to think that Disney's animated musical helped inspire an adult-oriented romance comic, and how it's a testament to how malleable Greek mythology is and the genres it can transcend, which I thought was really cool because Disney made Greek mythology into a musical for a movie, and then she made it into a webcomic, which is cool. So I love that. All right. How she got into publishing is kind of interesting, and I think it'd be interesting for artists out there or writers out there wanting to use this kind of medium. She was a graphic design graduate, and she tried to get a foot in the door at New Zealand's creative industry back in like 2008.
Wait, how old is she?
Right now?
Yeah, right now. When I pictured her in my head and like her writing style, I pictured mid-20s.
She's 37.
Oh, I am so wrong.
No,
Sorry.
She was
Sorry,
young.
Rachel.
I think this has been a lifelong work for her.
Has it? Okay.
Because she had mentioned at the end of like the whole series that this has been something she was doodling in like middle school.
Okay. That makes sense.
So since she was 12, she was researching about Greek mythology from Hercules and then crafting this story. And so I think it's been like her life work, honestly, has been creating these characters. But anyway, so back in 2008, she was trying to get into the creative industry, and she was rejected at every turn. She sent her portfolio off to multiple agencies, submitted artwork for numerous book proposals, and tried to sell her prints at like conventions, but nothing really worked. Eventually, her dream became a hobby, and instead she went into marketing. So she was doing this on the side. But eventually, she was able to, like in 2016, she came across the mobile app called Webtoon. So that was a long time. She's been like trying to get her foot in the door. And so she came across Webtoon, which features weekly comics that people could read on their phones. And it was a digital version of the manga, which is very popular, and also the manhwa, which is the Korean version, I think. The Korean version of manga. That's what they were using. But now I feel like it's really developed into multiple mediums for a lot of people, both amateurs and professionals in writing and art use webtoons as a tool.
Anytime because I was on webtoons a lot in like 2019, because I remember when her series started in 2018 and then became really popular in around 2019. I remember that.
Yeah.
Because I was on webtoons a lot at that time.
Really?
The art style just I never gravitated to it. So I didn't read it at the time. I was reading a lot of webtoons, but I read a lot of Korean manga. Wait, what is it?
Manhwa?
Manhwa?
Yeah.
I read a lot of that side of things.
Interesting.
I didn't read a lot of American authors.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I like look at other stuff, and it's really cool how you can see the different art styles, but I just really gravitate towards Rachel Smythe's style. I just love it so much. I just think it's so pretty, and I love the colors. I don't know. I love it so much. But it was cool learning about webtoons, though, because as consumers, like, I wasn't really sure of its origins, but apparently it was created as an online, like, daily chronicles by people who were out of work during the Asian financial crisis in 1997. So I was like, oh, interesting. So anyways, there's that. So she decided to draw her own comic, Lore Olympus, to be like an English romance of Persephone and Hades and deconstructing Greek mythology. And that was started in April 2017. So that was the birth of Lore Olympus.
Love it.
Yeah. I think something that we want to talk about today is like, what are the benefits of reading graphic novels as a genre? Or like, what does graphic novels bring to, what could it bring to you as a reader? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about this question. Well, originally I was like, what genre is Lore Olympus? Because anytime I think about it, I don't immediately go to the physical copies. I immediately think of the digital version, which is, so it's a web comic originally, and now it's a graphic novel. But I think graphic novels as a genre opens up a ton for people. Yeah. Because I know so many people, like students in high school, who they're like, I have a teacher who we're required to read at our reading level. Like, it's a thing that you have to do. I never had a teacher like this. My cousin has a teacher like this right now. Like, he has to read within, like, his certain level. And some students are like, I either just can't read at my technical reading level, because, like, how do you even test that? Well, they're tests, but, like, how do you really test that? Or, like, everything at my level's just boring. That's what I hear a lot. It's like, it's higher and it's boring and I don't want to read any of that kind of stuff. I Googled, this is like between a 9th grade and a 12th grade reading level. So it's like higher high school reading level. Yeah. But there are tons of graphic novels that are like that out there. It's like, you can find a graphic novel that's within your reading level and just read that and enjoy it. And
like, I would argue there's, like, philosophical stuff in Lore Olympus, but I never feel like the language is, like, inaccessible.
Like, there's an audience out there for people who love, like, the deeper stuff, but just want the help with, like, pictures, because it adds more to the story.
I love it. I love that graphic novels can be accessible to people in whatever interest, I guess. There's, like, a large range for people of various interests.
The other thing just on this topic, like, what are the benefits of reading graphic novels, is I do think it is an introduction to then help people gain the confidence is the right word, but, like, see that they can read at a higher level and then move on to more traditional works. I like that. So I think it's like a gateway, because I just have talked to a lot of people who are like, oh, I didn't realize that this was such a high reading level. And I'm like, yeah, they're just pictures, so it seems easier. But it's actually complicated. Okay, so, but then moving on, the other part of Lore Olympus is it's based on Greek mythology. And one thing that we have seen that people highly critique this book of is it's not like by the books. It doesn't follow, like, the original story. So the purists out there are also upset. But my question is like, why are there so many retellings of Greek mythology? Because she's not the first person who has watched Hercules and loved the story and wanted to create something out of it.
Oh, yeah.
There's tons of people out there. Like Percy Jackson, Song of Achilles, Circe. Those are all
adaptations
of this Greek mythology. But, like, why do people love it?
I don't know.
What do you think?
I think people have loved this stuff always. At least, I don't know. Always can be a hard term because I'm like, I mean, there was a time where we didn't have the written word and things like this. So it was all oral tradition. So I think it's really interesting because, I mean, we have myths and we have legends and we have fairy tales, and we've been seeing them be like readapted for centuries and centuries, and I think that's so cool, and they are always adapted, and so it's sometimes hard to even pinpoint an original source for these kinds of texts. The biggest form of entertainment before technology, it was stories. Like people would sit around and tell stories, and so
we've always had language.
Yeah,
we haven't always had something to write it down on.
Yeah, and so once we had like the written word, we were still adapting even after that, and so yeah, it's hard to like pinpoint like an original source for most of these myths and like fairy tales, but I think people just love, I don't know, like they're like stories about us, like people and love and fatal flaws.
They're messy.
And like, oh yeah. And you think like, wow, I'm so glad we don't live in that world today, but I think we're pretty capable of like the crazy stuff you'd read in like the Iliad or the Odyssey or I don't know, things like that. And so I think most people find like folklore and mythology and fairy tales very fascinating because sometimes they can be very revealing of human nature. But I also feel like these stories are interesting because they're kind of like little time capsules for the culture of the time as well. And so I feel like there's a lot we could go into with Lore Olympus with that, because I know that for a lot of people, like what you're saying, like with the purists, which is fine. Like if you're a purist, we get that. I'm just saying.
We're purists about different things.
For sure. I know, like, and like Grayson, he's a purist with Lord of the Rings. Like any adaptation that doesn't feel integrous to the book is like trash.
Our slander of The Cursed Child.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like The Cursed Child is like the worst fanfic. Like there's better fanfic out there. So it's okay. And like, so if Lore Olympus isn't your cup of tea, that's okay. I just want to say that for the purists out there, that like struggle with these adaptations of traditional mythology, it's something that I learned was, I don't know, like people really struggle with someone creating this beautiful romance between Hades and Persephone with the context of knowing what the actual relationship of Hades and Persephone was, which wasn't all that loving and consensual. No. It was not. That's
he
true.
He dragged her down.
Yeah, he took her and like he kidnapped her.
Hades in the original is not a good guy.
No, but he's not as bad as Zeus, which is interesting that in most Greek mythology retellings, Zeus kind of sucks in all of them.
Oh yeah, Zeus is always like this. I always picture Zeus as the guy with like blonde hair, perfect teeth, thinks he's all that in a bag of chips.
Yeah.
And like presents himself to the world. But because he has like money and power, he thinks he can do whatever he wants.
Oh yeah. But then like you get like Percy Jackson where it's like the gods really can't do anything out without their children. Like their children have to clean up their messes all the time or inherit their wars. Lore Olympus.
I always thought that was just because they were lazy.
Oh yeah, for sure. They were lazy. And like, it didn't get better when you got like the secondary series that he does, the Heroes of Olympus series, where it's like you get the Roman version and they also suck. Like, they all just are the worst. But the original, well, I guess not original, but like the oldest retelling of Hades and Persephone, like I think of that sculpture by Bernini. We talked about that.
Oh,
recently,
yeah.
where it's like the rape of Persephone.
We'll put it here.
Yeah.
And I want to see it in real life so bad.
Like, look at that. That's marble, you guys. That's marble, and it looks like fingers on like skin. It's crazy. Anyways, so that is the depiction of Persephone and Hades' relationship, which is horrible. But in like doing a little bit of research, not extensive, but a little bit of research, there was not actually like any and rape in the sense of the word now as it was being used at that time and the way that Bernini depicted this sculpture.
Yeah, well, because language is a huge thing. The word rape, I wish I know the word.
We could probably throw it up.
We'll throw it up. It looks like rape. It's like basically spelled the exact same way, I'm pretty sure. But in some translations it could just mean kidnapping.
Yeah.
And which is still not good.
No.
But like Chaucer, well, this is a tangent, but Chaucer got into the same issue. Is a lot of people thought that he raped a woman, and so people are like, oh, we shouldn't study Chaucer anymore. But that Greek word, he was falsely accused of kidnapping somebody or marrying a young woman.
Yeah.
So language is hard.
Language is definitely a barrier historically.
Or it could just mean rape.
Yeah.
It also could just mean that.
It could be. I don't know. Like, for that time, though, it was more common to use it as, like, a kidnapping, which also, kidnapping is also thought of differently now than it was then.
Yeah.
And so, like, think of Seven Brides of Seven Brothers.
Sobbing woman.
Sobbing woman. That was,
so
like,
bad.
not that big of a deal. Because, like, women at this time and marriage at this time was all messy. And so, like, women were property and objects. So it's like the context was completely different. So
it doesn't make it good.
It doesn't make it good. We're not saying, clearly we're not saying that. But it's just interesting to think of, like, the oldest telling of the version, like, or the oldest telling of Persephone and Hades. And also, Hades didn't really have that many lovers. He had, like, 2. And
Zeus
one
had
was, like, before Persephone.
Yeah.
Zeus? That man had children with everybody. So,
Literally.
I think it's just like, anyways, for the people that are purists out there, like, that's totally fine. Because, like, I mean, that is an intense thing between Hades and Persephone to change.
Yeah. I have this theory, though, that the purists, I'm going to put purists in air quotes, the purists out there who hate on this book.
Or gatekeepers.
Or gatekeepers.
Mythology. I don't know.
This is my conspiracy theory, is they're not actually, like, academics in that field. I think, like, real academics who spend their whole lives studying Greek mythology would read something like this and be like, yeah.
I think so, too.
I don't think they'd be offended about it at all. I think they would realize, like, oh, this has been retold so many times, and we don't even know what the oldest original version is.
Yeah, and also, I'm sure they read this and think it's really clever, because she's, like, associating very interesting characteristics on these gods that are apparent in their stories, and I love that. Like, and also, I love that she uses color. Like, what color would Apollo be? What color would Persephone be? So it just enhances the reading experience, because you just have this very strong visual sense of these gods and what they're going through. But anyways, I agree with that. I do think, like, I feel like if you had studied Greek mythology most of your life, you would know that there's so many different adaptations, so many different sources. And part of the beauty of human evolution is the fact that we can adapt these narratives and still, like, get some sort of the lessons or, like, messaging that was at some point there. I don't know.
Plus, I feel like in the world of adaptations, you can't be so married to just one version and just be like, oh, because that doesn't match my version that I like, that means it's bad.
Yeah.
I think there is this level of, because I fall in this trap all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's just different. It's just a different story.
Yeah. I love it. Lore Olympus is so good, and I love Greek mythology, and I love how we see so many different adaptations these days, and I feel like, I don't know, for me, as a reader, I just love seeing that someone took this narrative and made it kind of, like, chewable for me, because I know that has a large history, but also at the same time, like, the Greek mythology is so messy. Like, with the trigger warnings, like, we've known that for a long time, and so, like, that, like, aspect of, like, consent and like, trauma and abuse is so prevalent in Greek mythology.
Abuse of power.
Yeah, and, like, that she explores it in such a clever way, to me, in her graphic, or in her webcomic and graphic novel.
Yeah, and we can get into this more in the spoiler episode, but I also saw some people who are critiquing this book thought that like, Persephone was too naive and somebody was too this. I kind of liked that each one of her characters, because they were just a color, they were also just an archetype at the beginning. I do think they evolve as the book goes on, but I kind of like that they just embodied a characteristic, and then we just follow that. Like, what happens if they are like that?
Yeah.
'Cause I think that's how gods were portrayed a lot of times.
They were totally archetypes. And but I do feel like this book does a good job of starting off like that and then showing the complexities further.
Like, what happens if what does happen when you have a character that is so sheltered and so naive?
Yeah.
What could happen?
Yeah. And then, like, how do you come back from that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just think graphic novels or web comics or like, I do want to get more into comic books. I think the closest I got as a kid was Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
That's not bad.
That was like my gateway. And I loved that. Like, I loved looking at pictures, and maybe it's for like a lot of visual learners out there. I know that people have like thoughts on what that even means, like visual learners, because I'm pretty sure we're probably all like that. But I feel like, again, and you mentioned this, they address complex and mature themes, but they do it in a very accessible way for readers. And so for people out there wanting to get into reading, maybe start with a webcomic.
Yeah.
Maybe start with a graphic novel. Maybe that's something for you. Because, like, I don't know, you can get, like...
Brandon Sanderson has a graphic novel.
Oh,
so, like,
really?
if you really want to read Brandon Sanderson, but his huge series are, like...
Overwhelming.
Real overwhelming.
Yeah.
He's got a graphic novel.
That's really cool.
I don't remember what it's called, but it exists.
Yeah. But there's just, like, something about having, like, graphic... Maybe, I don't know if this is always true. Because I think of Mouse, that's pretty intense because it's going through, like, Holocaust and incredibly heavy themes. But, I do feel like it makes the heavy topics and like mature themes, like, I don't know, like, I feel like it just makes it approachable somehow.
Oh, totally.
So I don't know, take that with what you will, but that's just my spiel and us kind of talking up webcomics and like graphic novels and what they could do for readers.
I do think people view them as like lesser than.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, this
They
is
have
basically
pictures.
a picture book. And
Like,
I'm like,
for little
well,
kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Plus, it's just another form of art. Like, it's fun to appreciate the art that is in each book.
Yeah. There's also like many ways to consume literature. Little L, I guess.
Little L.
But
I hate it when people are like, oh, if you listen to audiobooks, that's not reading.
that's
That's my biggest pet peeve ever.
Why?
So it's like, oh, if you read the graphic novel, that's not reading. I was like,
No.
what do you mean?
Like, also, like, that's not fair. Like,
No.
some people, like, we got blue collar workers out here doing 12-hour day shifts.
How are they supposed to
how
sit
are they
down and
supposed
read?
to sit down and read? Like I think sure there is a level of engagement you get by holding a book, by having a pen.
Yeah.
But like, no, like, if we just want people to read, you gotta do it in a way that works for you.
Yeah.
So if that's audio, that's graphic novels, or if you're the one sitting every morning with your pencil and copy of your book, I mean, that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So anyways,
We love it.
we love this book. Well, I love this book. I know that Callie likes this so far.
I'm not in the like love, but I do really enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm glad. So we just hope that this is a great little segue into this genre of literature, and hopefully we did some justice to Rachel Smythe and like what she was doing with Lore Olympus. But of course, like, this is pretty surface level, like not super deep
We're
dive.
introducing it.
Yeah, introduction.
Yeah.
Keyword.
Yeah, we'll see you next time when we get more into our thoughts and the spoilers. Again, when we get into our next episode, we are going to spoil kind of the whole series. Thank you so much for watching, listening. We will see you next time. Bye!